Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's FBC Radio Live. It's Friday, September the 8th, 2023, and game one of 272 is in the books. The Lions pull off the upset, John. 4.5-point underdogs pull off the upset in Kansas City, 21-20 over the defending Super Bowl champions. And, John, it's depending on how you look at this game, I mean, it was a very entertaining game. I don't think I don't think either team was particularly sharp the entire game. They both had their moments where it very clearly looked like it was week one. But for the most part, it was a pretty entertaining game. And at the end of the day, I think the Chiefs are looking at Travis Kelce and saying, "Man, I hope we get you back," because it looked like a very different offense out there for Kansas City.
Well, maybe Travis Kelce's agent may be on the phone saying, "Hey, you know what? Travis Kelce makes $5 million less than T.J. Hawkinson just signed for. So, maybe it's time to up his contract as well as they're trying to negotiate Chris Jones to get him back." So, yeah, we see how much Travis Kelce means to the Kansas City offense. In some degree, he's a better player, but Julian Edelman meant so much to the Patriots offense because they just moved the chains, and that's what Travis Kelce is so great at. And Kelce, obviously, a much better red zone target because of his sheer size and that athletic ability. But yeah, and it's kind of a turnoff that people are like saying, well, Detroit didn't really deserve this win because Kansas City had Chris Jones out and Travis Kelce out, and Kadarius Toney had more drops last night than I think Larry Fitzgerald had in his entire career. But give Detroit credit; they hung in there. Their defense, I think, is improved offensively. They're very versatile. Jared Goff has developed into a very good quarterback. I mean, he's not a great quarterback, but a very good quarterback. And the Lions now, Ian, have won 9 of their last 11. They won 8 of their last 10 to end last season, and now they won in Kansas City. I know there were some other things that people want to talk about, but give them credit too.
No, absolutely. And I thought it was, as a lot of people have pointed out, I thought it was kind of disrespectful to immediately call it like an asterisk. And again, this kind of goes into the, oh my God, I can't believe, Patrick Mahomes lost, the next greatest quarterback of all time. And you listen to the coverage, and, this is something we poke at all the time. We keep asking the question, when's it going to turn? Well, with the fans, I think it's turning, because you look across and the reaction to a lot of this is, all right, guys, let's relax. We understand there's drops and this, that, and the other, but like, they're not the only team that has to deal with injuries. They're not the only team that has to deal with, holdouts or situations like that. And, the media tends to be very apologetic towards Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs team. And I think other fan bases are starting to kind of get a little tired of it, because it's like when you sit there and you go, in particular, there's a national commentator that made a comment about, if the Chiefs were to win this game, they didn't want to hear any sort of criticism about Patrick Mahomes ever again, which is just kind of a very ridiculous statement to make, especially, against the Lions in week one in a regular season game. It's just kind of absurd. So when they lose and you get called out, it's probably not a good idea to double down and say that, well, basically Mahomes deserves zero criticism. Now, he does, just like the entire offense. It was sloppy. It was disjointed. I didn't think Andy Reid had a particularly strong game, or whoever was calling the plays, because that was a very puzzling 4th and 25. I thought for sure they were going to punt, and I thought their defense was probably their best unit of the night, most consistent. So why not give them a chance to make a play? So that was confusing. I thought some of the play calls, they just tried to, it's like that whole ring around the rosy thing. Remember last year where they, it was all like, and it's like, okay, that really, that did nothing. You know what I mean? It's like that triple deke glove side. It's like, oh, great, you go down, you triple deke, but then you come to a complete stop, which completely eliminates exactly what you did. Like, where's the deception, So, again, it felt like this entire Chiefs team was disjointed. I'm not saying, oh my God, they lost because of Patrick Mahomes. No, he had a pretty good game, but he also had a inconsistent game. I mean, look, the interception throw and someone tweeted it yesterday. That's the Tom Brady special, and I'm like, man, I was having flashbacks to last season and his what should have been MVP season because he lost the MVP essentially because of a handful of picks like that. So I'm not saying at all that was his fault. I mean that was a great throw. Tony should have absolutely caught it. It was a poor play on his part. It resulted in an interception. However, some of these other drops, like the other one to Tony, where he was wide open and he should have caught it, but John, the pass was behind him, and he was, I mean, more than open. There was not a defender around him, so you throw that ball in front of him where it's supposed to go. Maybe he catches the ball. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that he's struggling. He's coming off of an injury, trying to get healthy and these passes are made even more difficult. You know what I mean? So uh, to say he's not open to criticism is absurd, and I kind of think is very it's just bad. It's just bad analytics if that's what and coverage if that's what you're going to say.
Well,
He along with the rest of the team, yeah, they played sloppy and they deserved to lose and they did. So
so it makes no sense to do what we do if we can't criticize athletes. And obviously, you love
exactly.
Tom Brady. I like Aaron Rodgers. I criticize Aaron Rodgers a lot. Tom Brady's had bad playoff games. 2009 against the
Hmm.
Baltimore Ravens, 2010 against the New York Jets. You have to criticize a guy when he's not at his best. I criticize LeBron James quite a bit, and he's my favorite basketball player of all time, and I think he's the greatest player of all time. But to say that you can't criticize an athlete or a team or an organization, now you sound like a fan. You're supposed to be an analyst. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's exactly it because well, and here's the mindset that I take too, and like the way I approach it is I get told pretty much every day that he wakes up and is on a TV screen that he is this supremely gifted athlete already in a top 5 conversation just 5 years into his career, all that stuff. Well, if you're gonna obsessively push that hyperbole and that nonsense, well, guess what? He's going to be judged in that way, and like I said, that makes him fall incredibly short of expectations. As crazy as it sounds, John. So again, you can't have it both ways. It's like trying to again. I don't believe that interception was his fault. I am very much a proponent of context-driven interception statistics. I mean, I just kind of made that up off the top of my head. It kind of sounds cool and fancy, but the point is, like, I'm okay like looking at and comparing and contrasting turnover worthy plays with actual interceptions because I think it does give a much better indicator. The problem is, John, if you're a Chiefs fan or one of these analysts who are trying to excuse the interception or say, "Oh my," that shouldn't count, or it's like it wasn't his fault. Well, you have to accept the other side of the blade too. And that is turnover worthy plays. And guess what, John? When you look at it that way, it doesn't really necessarily come out favorably towards Patrick Mahomes because generally he throws fewer interceptions than turnover worthy plays that he's credited for, which, well, that indicates that he has more fortune than most. I mean, a couple years ago, Tom Brady, I think I had Tom Brady had more interceptions than his turnover worthy plays on the season, which again speaks to just some bad luck when it comes to that, deflected passes, like drop passes turned into interceptions, that type of thing. So, if you want to argue that, yeah, it wasn't his fault, I'll agree with you. But you also have to accept the other side of the sword, like I said, and say, yeah, that may have not been his fault, but he threw a couple other passes that may have and probably should have been intercepted in that game. You can't ignore that and get your way at the same time.
Well, on the flip side too, I mean, oftentimes a lot of these great quarterback touchdown passes come on great catches by the receivers, right? So at that point, do you say, well, I mean, Patrick Mahomes threw 3 touchdown passes, or Aaron Rodgers had 3 touchdown passes, but one of them we got to give total credit to the wide receiver because it wasn't a great
Hmm.
pass, and the wide receiver made a great catch. So I mean, you can go back and forth with
Right.
this stuff all the time. I just push back that you can't criticize the guy. Look, I think he's the best quarterback in football. I don't think it's by leaps and bounds. I think Burrow and Allen and Rodgers are right close by.
I think it's by default.
Well, yeah. Cody would say by default, it's just he's got the Super Bowl trophy now. Brady's retired. He's got the Super Bowl trophy.
Mm-hmm.
So if Joe Burrow beat him last year in the AFC Championship game and then beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, then we can make the debate that hey, look, Joe Burrow is 4-0 against Patrick Mahomes, went to 2 straight Super Bowls and won one. That's how close that came. But it didn't. So give the man his credit, absolutely. But I mean, to say you can't criticize him or beyond criticism that's crazy. I mean, what are we all doing this for? I mean, that sounds like something out of a fan group or a fan chat.
Well, if the shoe fits, I mean, just put it
right.
that way.
I mean, we're talking about national broadcasters or national analysts. I mean,
it's like
you have to be.
Like let's put it this way. I don't know if you remember. There was one pass, because there were several passes that he sailed and they came up short. Like I said, a couple of those drops. I mean, one was very much behind Kadarius Toney. There was another where I don't even know if it was necessarily him he was throwing it to, because the two receivers crossed each other at the same time, and that's when he threw the ball. And it went right down the middle. So, am I going to put a bunch of blame on Toney for dropping that? I mean, I don't even know if the ball was intended to go to him. It could have been to the other receiver going across. But, that's the thing. It's like at one point he threw a ball that was in between two receivers, but the only problem was the distance. You remember that game, Catch the Bacon, or what was it? You put the thing in the middle of the gymnasium and you run and you try to grab whatever item it is. Well, that's kind of what it was, because there was about 10 yards difference between the receiver that it fell short of and the one it sailed past. And I remember Chris Collinsworth saying, trying to come up with some sort of reasoning as to why it wasn't just a kind of a sailed bad pass. And it was like, oh, well, I think he tried to underthrow it so his receiver could come back to it. Like, come back to it by 15 yards? Like, come on, just, say it what it is. It was an errant pass that just really didn't go anywhere. And again, it happens. Every quarterback does it, So perhaps the funniest, most disconcerting part of that whole game was just the utter fact that the right tackle was getting away with blatant false starts. I mean, it was so egregious that like even the broadcast was calling it out, and it took until the last drive for him to get called for it. I mean, it's funny because of how obvious it was, but then when you get past the kind of humor, you're like, you know what? This is very concerning that you can just allow that to happen throughout an entire game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it's all based on protecting the quarterback. So, if the tackle's having some problems dealing with pass rush, or, we know it's going to be a pass, and sometimes the tackle will kick out a little bit quickly. We saw that for years. I mean, that's something that happens.
This is beyond a little bit quickly, though.
Yeah, if it happens on play, right. Yeah, I mean, if he's, 3/4 of a second ahead of everybody, that's a little bit alarming. So, yeah, you got to be able to clean that up, and maybe the league will get a hold of them. But yeah, you got to call that. That's an infraction.
Yeah, and it's like on top of that too. It's like it wasn't only that; it was where he was lining up too. And we heard the rules and analyst come on and explain that and be like, hey, he's lining up not where he's supposed to. So right off the bat, that's a penalty. And then it was
right.
It was just it was a really bad officiating night by the officials just for that alone. I mean, you can't you can't allow that to happen. It was bad. So. But, hey, as it stands, the Lions are 1-0. The Chiefs are 0-1. And, it was like I said, it was an entertaining game. Sure. Sloppy at times and kind of, like I said, disjointed at times. I mean, there was a stretch there where the Lions offense kind of forgot what they were doing. And then they found it again, which was good for them because they needed it to win. But, it's going to create a great discussion over the next 10 days. Let's just put it that way, because I believe Kansas City gets Jacksonville next week, and that should be an interesting. That should be an interesting one because I don't think Chad Henne is coming out of retirement to lead a 98-yard touchdown drive to beat this team this time.
No, Jacksonville's for real. Yeah, Jacksonville's for real. Most everyone's picking them to win the AFC South, us included. So yeah, that's not going to be an easy matchup. We'll see if Kelsey comes back. And again, don't rush the guy because, okay, even if you get off to an 0-2 start, teams can come back from an 0-2 start to make the playoffs and make a run. I believe in 2019 when Kansas City won their first Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes, they were 6-4 at one point, and then they got healthy, they got right, they won their final 6 regular season games, and then carried it on in throughout the playoffs. So, the games in September, they do mean something because you want to try to create enough space so that you end up with home field advantage. But, the key thing for Kansas City is making sure that Kelsey's back and healthy.
No, I 100% agree. So, all right, let's get into our week 1 picks because hey,
before you do that, do you want to give our Super Bowl picks?
Oh yes, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that. Yeah. So I'll start because I gave these yesterday and yesterday when we did our pre-show there, but I get the feeling now, and my confidence was even made a little bit stronger after Nick Bosa signed his contract. I think San Francisco is going to go to the Super Bowl. I still, and I've been saying it over and over, I still have questions about Brock Purdy. I think the only other take it to the bank team in the NFC right now is the Eagles. So I don't see that conference as necessarily being as deep as the AFC or as competitive. So I like San Francisco to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. And John, this is feeling like a Lamar Jackson Baltimore Ravens season. I don't know. It feels like it. They're a franchise that's always kind of pretty good, but then they have these spikes where they're just great. And I think things are kind of aligned for that to happen this year. Lamar Jackson signs his contract. They bring in a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. You add some good talent on defense, and all of a sudden, I think you have an MVP season out of Lamar Jackson, and this team goes on and wins the Super Bowl. So I kind of gave my MVP pick as well there. So I got the rematch is Super Bowl 47. Yeah, 47. 49ers, Ravens.
Yeah. 49ers, Ravens. Yeah, that was in 2012.
Yeah,
so,
and
47. Yeah, 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago.
The insufferable Harbaugh Bowl. I mean, that was the most. I mean, you would get still one Harbaugh, but actually, I don't know what's worse: Harbaugh versus Harbaugh, or Harbaugh versus Shanahan. I don't know.
That's true, yeah.
Like, you know what? I'm not rooting for this for the coaching matchup. I just think it would be a good Super Bowl matchup. And like I said, I got a feeling that this is going to be a Ravens type of year.
Yeah, that's become a real trendy pick the last few days. I've heard a lot of people picking Baltimore to not only win
they listen to me,
but to get there. They do, absolutely. They got it from you and said, Sky Ian's pretty bright, so let's go on and follow him. I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys from the NFC. Yes, they have not played in a Super Bowl since 1995, so, that's a long, long time ago. I think their defense is outstanding, and I'm just sitting on a big year from Dak Prescott, and I think he's got the tools to work with. In the AFC, I'm going with Cincinnati. I think Joe Burrow's primed for an MVP season. He signed his new contract yesterday. I think Cincinnati represents the AFC, and I have Cincinnati beating Dallas in the Super Bowl.
I like it. I don't share the same confidence in Dallas as you do. Like I said, I'm in a holding pattern with Dak Prescott. I want to kind of see how this season starts and materializes, because if he starts, with the turnover issues again, then I'm going to be greatly concerned. I'm not going to expect too much out of him, but don't mind that Cincinnati pick. I came close to, I think this is going to be, I think both Baltimore and Cincinnati are going to win high double-digit games. I do think Baltimore is going to squeak past Cincinnati in the division. So it would not surprise me if Cincinnati did get over that hump. So there you go. That's our Super Bowl picks. Don't hold it against us if and when we are wrong. So, anyways, so let's get back to those week 1 picks like we do each and every year. It's I was printing off my sheet and I'm like, oh, here we go again. It's another season. So Carolina at Atlanta. Big NFC South matchup. Desmond Ridder, you got CJ Stroud. Actually, it is. I mean, look, obviously you're excited to see the first overall pick, and I am as well. Let's see what the kid can do. I think Carolina's kind of the wild card in that division because if he has a strong season, all of a sudden, there's an opportunity for Carolina to win that division because, well, quite frankly, I don't think it's going to happen for any, I think it's going to happen with like 8 or 9 wins. I don't think it's going to take that much. So, I got Carolina winning this game. I just, like I said, I'm kind of going on the first overall pick hype and the fact that, well, again, this conference or this division rather is pretty wide open because none of the teams are really that good.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right, Ian. It could be an 8 or 9 win team that wins the division. Last year, Tampa won it with 8. I think Tampa's the one team I don't take seriously in this division. I think the other 3 teams will fight it out for the division lead. I'm going with Atlanta. I picked them to win the division in our preview, so I'll take Atlanta at home over Carolina.
All right, Jacksonville at Indianapolis. I think this is pretty straightforward. I'm taking Jacksonville. I have no confidence in that Indianapolis is going to have a successful season. 4 or 5 wins. I mean, that's kind of where I'm looking, and I don't like this start for them to kick off the season going up against Jacksonville. So I like Jacksonville, and I like them pretty comfortably.
Yeah, Jacksonville's the better team. They're the favorites to win that division. So go Jaguars in this one. I think they win fairly comfortably.
Commanders hosting the Cardinals. Cardinals, another team that I don't think is destined for any sort of great success this year. However, I mean, the question marks that they got to get through. No Kyler Murray. I mean, even if he was under center, I'm not a huge Kyler Murray guy. It's going to be interesting to see how their season unfolds. But again, another year where I just don't see many positives coming out of Arizona and Washington. Sometimes they trick me into thinking that they're ready to become this next really good team in the NFC. I'm intrigued by Sam Howell. I'm intrigued by Eric Bieniemy. I mean, if we're gonna make judgments based on one singular game, well, the loss of Eric Bieniemy looked very, very evident. Let's say last night for Kansas City. So if you're the Commanders, you're like, oh, okay. Hopefully, he brings that structure and efficiency that was there in Kansas City to Washington, and all of a sudden you're talking about the Commanders as being a pretty good team. I like them this week. Again, probably pretty handily, but I'm not necessarily sold on them long term.
Yeah, matchup of 2 teams that probably won't qualify for the playoffs. Arizona seems to be in full tank mode. Washington still has a good defense, some weapons on offense. We'll see what Sam Howell's all about in week 1. But yeah, I like Washington.
Cincinnati, both of our well, again, I'm picking Baltimore to go to the Super Bowl, but I love me some Bengals. Cincinnati at Cleveland. I mean, I like Cincinnati. I mean, Cleveland's a team that they could probably win every week, but not consistently. And I think, you're going to have moments from Deshaun Watson where, he might look like the elite quarterback that people think he is. But the reality of it is the guy hasn't really played a lot of meaningful football over the last 3 or 4 years. I think last year I'm not going to completely judge him on that, but I don't have, high expectations for him to all of a sudden just completely turn everything around and throw 5,000 yards and lead the Browns to like 13 wins. I don't see it. I think they start 0-1. So yeah, I got the Bengals.
The Browns upset Cincinnati last year on a Monday night game, so I think that's in the back of Joe Burrow's mind, and I think he takes care of business on Sunday with this new contract. Cincinnati handily. Well, it's such a rivalry game. When they battle each other, there's a lot of close matchups. But I like Cincinnati in this one. I can't pick them to win the Super Bowl and then pick them not to beat the Cleveland Browns in week 1.
Right. Oh, see, that's smart. I mean, you're covering your bases there, John. Next, we have the Raiders heading to Denver. Sean Payton making his debut as the Denver Broncos head coach. Will Russell Wilson return to the Russell Wilson of old, or will we see more of last year? Well, you know me. I'm not. Maybe have things against short quarterbacks because short people they get to me because Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy I think is pretty short. Right? I think isn't he like 5'10" or something like that?
Yeah, 5'11". I mean, your
Yeah,
guy is 6'5". Tom Brady's
yeah.
legitimately six
Well,
five. I know he's
I,
listed at 6'4", but he's a tall dude.
yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot of there's a lot of reason for that. I mean, I obviously, physically you just can't see over some of these people. You know what I mean? And like I said,
Hmm.
I just I'm not getting into a quarterback debate right now. But either way, I was kind of ahead of the curve when it came to the Russell Wilson decline. I saw a guy that was a couple years ago at the time a pretty good quarterback, but I just I think there was a reason why he never got a single MVP vote because it never was consistent across the board. And now without even some of those positives, I mean, it looks a lot worse. I don't think it's going to be as bad as last year, John. I think they're going to be a little bit better, and I think he's going to be a little bit better, but I don't think it's going to be good enough, certainly to compete in the division. Um, well, I mean, who knows? Maybe Kansas City goes 0-17. I know your boy Nick Wright predicted 20-0, and that came crashing down spectacularly on the very first game of the season. But realistically, they're not going to compete in this division. I just I don't you said it yesterday, I don't know if Sean Payton necessarily wants Russell Wilson, but that's a complicated issue and obviously one that he was willing to take on because he knew this, like he came into it knowing full well what the Russell Wilson situation was. And unless his ego was so overblown that he thought he could fix anyone, then I think he anticipated that, yeah, this may not go well with him. We may need to pull the plug entirely. But I got to believe that Sean Payton has a lot of leverage or a lot of leash when it comes to this job. This isn't a you have to turn it around in a year or two or you're going to get fired. Like, no, this team could win less than 8-9 games for the next 2 or 3 years, and Sean Payton's going to be just fine. I think a lot of that blame would go on Russell Wilson, if assuming he's still around. But I don't see them starting out strong. Just a hunch, I guess. No real reason because they're playing the Raiders. The Raiders aren't anything special. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo will have moments, but I think he has a moment here, and the Raiders win. So give me, I almost said Oakland. Give me Las Vegas.
You have Sean Payton, of course, signing like a 5-year, $100 million contract from the new ownership group of the Denver Broncos, where it was the old ownership group of the Broncos that signed Russell Wilson. So obviously, this new ownership group is going to be more loyal to Sean Payton. So obviously, Russell Wilson is going to have to be at least buttoned up and at least be a good quarterback. He doesn't have to be an MVP candidate, but he's got to be better than he was last year, which I would
Well, he was
assume
never an
he
MVP
should be able
candidate
to.
before, so
No, exactly. Yeah. No, he never received the vote, but he was still a very good quarterback. But last year was just god awful. He was one of the worst quarterbacks in football. I like Denver in this matchup. I think one of the best matchups of the day, if they go head to head, will be Devontae Adams from the Raiders, wide receiver, going against cornerback Patrick Surtain. Maybe the two best at their position. That could be an interesting matchup. But I'm going to go with Denver. They're at home, and this has the chance of being kind of this wild game that the networks will cut to at the end to show like some crazy finish.
hey, I'd love it. 1 o'clock. I mean, there's a lot of really good 1 o'clock games, so I'm very very eager, very happy that the Patriots play at 4:25 because I love the red zone at 1 o'clock. Get to see all the games, especially week one. So next we have Seattle hosting the Rams. I got Seattle. I mean, I think the Rams are a what do the kids say? Dumpster fire. Yeah, that's all I got to say. I got the Seahawks this once must watch TV rivalry. I think it's just gonna kind of be a whimper. I think Seattle handles pretty well.
Seattle's drafted so well the last few years. I have them winning the division, so certainly I think they'll beat the Rams on Sunday.
All right, Giants hosting the Cowboys. I got the Giants. I'm guessing you're probably going to take the
Ooh.
Cowboys because they're a Super Bowl pick and kind of got to figure they're going to beat the Giants. But the Giants at home, I think there's a potential that there's going to be a couple turnovers, sloppy play from both sides. I like the Giants in this one.
Is it every year? Is it mandatory that the Cowboys and Giants play on Sunday Night Football? And I don't blame them because the Cowboys still draw better than any other team in football. And look, the New York market, if just 20% of the New York market's watching, that's a lot of people watching. So I'm going to go with Dallas, obviously, my Super Bowl pick. And I think that their defense will really bottle up the Giants' offense. I'll go with Dallas.
Next, we have the Ravens hosting the Texans. Pretty easy for me. Ravens. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be the
yeah. It's just, I mean, look, Texans, they could be, you know, things could turn around for them. I'm not, you know what I mean? New kind of regime, new, like D'Amico Ryans and his in tow, all that stuff. You know, things could turn around. Just, it's not going to happen right away. And it's certainly not going to happen against the Ravens in week 1. So give me Baltimore.
most popular knockout pool selection in week 1 will be the Ravens. They're like a 9.5 point favorite over the Texans. They should take care of business. Lamar Jackson, healthy, new contract, some nice weapons on offense. The defense is good. Baltimore should sail in this game.
Next, we have Tampa Bay heading to Minnesota. Baker Mayfield led Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah, I think they come up short. Like I said, I really don't think it's going to be a great season in Tampa. I think Baker's going to have his moments for sure. I mean, because it's Baker Mayfield and he has talent. So, you know, he'll have his moments where, you know, he'll make some nice plays. But I think there's going to be way too many more negative plays. And again, you go back to coaching. I just don't think Todd Bowles is the guy for the job. I really don't. And we saw that last year. And I mean, he's the only guy to ever have a losing record with Tom Brady. Let's just put it that way. That's not something that's something you'd be impressed with. But needless to say, this season's a new season. No Tom Brady, but I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win this one, especially if they have that Mike Evans contract stuff looming. If they don't get a deal done by tomorrow, which is the deadline. So yeah, Tampa Bay, nah.
No, I'm going with Minnesota. I mean, I'm not that confident in Minnesota this year, but on Sunday at home against what might be the second worst team in the NFC behind only Arizona, I'll take the Vikings.
Yeah. It's funny how that works when Tom Brady leaves. You know, all of a sudden this Super Bowl bound team, which I understand is not quite the same. We understand that, but very quickly it turns into not so much of this super team. John, just saying. Next we have Tennessee at New Orleans. New Orleans, Derek Carr making his debut with the Saints. I like Tennessee in this game. I mean, I think they're the second best team in the AFC South. I just don't think there's anything special about Tennessee, John. You know, I can't explain it. It's just like it's like when they were the 1 seed a couple years ago. No one cared. You know, like it's like that clip from Jurassic Park where Newman is sitting there at the restaurant. And he's like, look, you know, so and so's right over here, and no one cares. Well, yeah, look, the Titans are the number 1 seed. Yeah, no one cares. Like, I don't get. I like Mike Vrabel a lot as a coach. I do. I'm not a big Tannehill guy, and I don't know. Just they don't do it for me, but they will do it this weekend and beat the Saints. So give me the Titans.
I'll take the Saints. You know, at home, Derek Carr right now might be the best quarterback in the NFC South. I mean, because there's so many young quarterbacks in the NFC South that by default he's the best quarterback. And a lot of people are picking the Saints to win the division. I'm picking Atlanta, but I think New Orleans will take care of business here. The defense is still pretty good, although it's old. But, you know, they're going to have to contend with Derrick Henry. Obviously, he's a guy who can be a great equalizer, but I'll take the Saints in week 1.
Next, we got San Francisco heading to Pittsburgh. This should be a very fascinating matchup because I think there's a lot of hype around Pittsburgh, and it might be a little overdone. Maybe it could be, but they're still, regardless of, I think a up and coming team with a lot of potential against. I think one of the two favorites in the NFC, them and the Eagles in San Francisco. So I like this game. I like this. This is going to be a close game, I think, but I like San Francisco.
I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh their defense is outstanding. I think they'll be able to at least bottle up, contain the San Francisco offense. I mean, Brock Purdy is going to be starting at quarterback. You know, how healthy is he coming back from that elbow injury a year ago? And I think Pittsburgh's offense, you know, is improving with Kenny Pickett at quarterback in his second year. George Pickens has a chance to be a really good wide receiver. They've buttoned up that offensive line. I like Pittsburgh at home in this matchup over the 49ers.
All right. Next, we have the New England Patriots hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Rematch of Super Bowl 39 and Super Bowl 52. Obviously, sans Tom Brady. But he will be in attendance, John. He will be in attendance. Not quite sure exactly the ceremony. I'm kind of rooting for the retire the number on the spot thing, which I think would be kind of cool and certainly. I mean, there's never going to be a player that ever wears number 12 for the Patriots again. Let's just put it that way. I understand the complications when it comes to football jerseys, but let's be honest, John. Another player's not going to wear 12 for the Patriots. It's just not going to happen.
I hope not.
No, I'd be sure. I hope not, unless it's him. You're like,
Right, yeah.
like unless it's him coming down and playing when wearing number 12. I hope not. Knowing Bill Belichick, it'll go to like the fourth tight end on the roster in training camp or something like that, and it's going to look awkward. But no, seriously though, he'll be there. There's going to be a halftime little hoopla and all that stuff. And you know what? I think there's going to be a aura there that's gonna shock people. I think the Patriots are going to win this game. I think they're going to surprise the Eagles just based on Brady's presence in that building. I mean, in reality, I do think the Patriots are one of these teams that could be incredibly one way or the other. Like they could have a middle of the pack 8-9 win season, or their offense could really catch fire and be very effective. And we're not going to figure that out in week one, but I think we're going to get a glimpse of some of the positives that they can do. And I think perhaps the uncertainty. I mean, I say that, and Matt Patricia's on the defensive staff in Philadelphia, but then again, he didn't really know what to do with the offense when he was here coaching the offense. So why should I expect he should know how to stop it? You know what I mean? But I look, other than the fact that, like I said, I think there's just going to be a lot of energy in that building, Tom Brady being back, all that stuff. I think the Patriots are going to surprise the Eagles. And this by no means tells you that, or makes me say that they're better than the Eagles. Not a chance right now. But I think they can surprise it. And we're going to see the two Super Bowl competitors lose in week one.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, the Super Bowl loser the last 22 years is 8-14 straight up in week one of the following season. They're, I believe, 4-18 against the spread. The Eagles are like a 4-point favorite. Maybe it's a close win by the Eagles. I just think it's a tough matchup for the Patriots. The Eagles, whether you think they're the best team in football, the third best team, whatever, I do think that they're the best at the line of scrimmage. Their offensive and defensive lines are so good that they will really control this game. And again, we have questions about the Patriots' offensive line that could cause problems for Mac Jones. So I'll take the Eagles in week one.
Next, we have the Dolphins hosting the Chargers. Fascinating matchup because I think there's a lot of intrigue with both teams. Obviously, the Tua versus Justin Herbert conversation is always going to be pretty active, I think, as long as both of them are playing at their respective locations. I like the Chargers in this one at home. I think that the Dolphins, if you're looking at the spread, I think they're going to cover the spread. But I like the Chargers to just straight out win this game. I think Justin Herbert. I think he's going to have a bounce back season. I thought he regressed a decent amount last year, or just was not the same player he was the year before. I think he has a better season this year, and I think he takes advantage of I don't know, a mediocre Dolphins defense. I mean, no Jalen Ramsey. We talked about this in the offseason. Like, they brought in Jalen Ramsey to do some pretty heavy lifting on this team. I know they have Xavier Howard, but you still invested a lot in Jalen Ramsey, and I don't even think he's not even going to be out there, is he?
No, he's not going to probably play till December at the earliest. So if they can kind of hang on and get playoff contention at that point, then maybe he can come in and be something that leads them to the playoffs. But I'm going to go with the Chargers here. Yeah, I mean, this seems like the potential to be a high-scoring game with all the great wide receivers, and Tua's healthy, and Herbert has that new contract, and now he's got Kellen Moore as his offensive coordinator, which I think is an upgrade. So, yeah, the Chargers, who are in more wild games than any other team in football.
Oh, sure.
Like, every game of the Chargers is like, you need
some of that
5 days to analyze
too.
it. It is, right, yeah, because Brandon Staley is going to go for it on fourth down at every possible selection, turn down field goals that would have given his team a 2-score lead. I mean, yeah, they're a team that you can literally watch their game and then analyze it for the next week because there's a lot of craziness involved. But I'll take the Chargers.
Yeah, Brandon Staley was taking notes when Andy Reid went for it on 4th and 25. Yeah. Anyways, Green Bay traveling to Chicago to take on the Bears. Jordan Love era begins. I think I made this pick before. Like the the first game of the Jordan Love era could feature a very limited wide receiver group, um, and that concerns me. So on my paper, I picked the Packers, but I think I'm going to switch it and go with the Bears at home. I I'm big on the Bear. I picked them to win this division. Um,
Mhm.
Losing to the Packers in week one, I mean, I'm not, that wouldn't have been a death knell to this team because, again, I don't think the teams in this division are particularly great. Like you, I'm not sold on Minnesota. But I'm going to switch my pick here and I'm going to go with the Bears just because I know Justin, what's his face? I'm drawing a blank here, John. Help me out here. Christian
Justin
Watson.
Fields?
No.
Oh,
Christian
Christian
Watson.
Watson. Okay.
I said Justin Watson. I was thinking of the Kansas City Chiefs player. But no, Christian Watson was a little bit banged up. I mean, again, this is a
Mhm.
tough task for a new starting quarterback to go on the road in Chicago and perform with lesser than. I mean, look, their receiving group wasn't great to begin with, and now it's even less than that. So I'm going to flip it up, and I'm going to go with the Bears.
I think Green Bay's defense will be the best unit on the field, so that'll keep them in the game. And then their ability to run the football with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones behind what I think is still a real good offensive line will be enough to cover up the loss of the wide receivers and the inexperience of Jordan Love. I'll take the Packers and probably this low-scoring slugfest, although, sometimes you get surprised with wild games with turnovers, et cetera. But I'll take Green Bay in week one.
All right, Monday Night Football.
Hmm.
Buffalo heading to New York. The Jets. I like the Bills in this one. I know Aaron Rodgers has that sweet 9 straight wins on Monday Night Football, but unfortunately for him, he's playing teams other than the Lions and the Bears because that was about the only teams he ever faced on Monday Night Football, which led very nicely to that 9-0 current record that he has, little streak going on. So, look, I think this should be a fun game. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of hoopla surrounding Rodgers. I think the energy should be good in the stadium, but I like Buffalo here. We talked about it yesterday and before. I think Buffalo's going under the radar, and I think that's good for Buffalo. We haven't heard just about anything, certainly as opposed to last year. So. I like them to get off to a pretty strong start this season, and that includes a victory over Aaron Rodgers, your guy, in the New York Jets.
I'll take the Jets, and I think it may not be a high-scoring game. People are expecting that because both offensive lines have question marks, and both defenses can put pressure on the quarterback. But I'll take the Jets in this game because I think there's going to be so much excitement in the stadium, so they'll have a noticeable home field advantage. And I think Rodgers is really, he's as healthy as he's going to be all year and ready to go. And they can run the football with a two-headed monster of Dalvin Cook and if Bryce Hall plays. But yeah, I like the Jets in this and what should be, an outstanding Monday night matchup in week one.
Yeah, shaping up to be quite a weekend. So that's going to do it for us here today and for this weekend. So definitely tune in on Monday when we kind of give our reaction to all these games and kind of what happened. And we'll certainly tell you where we were wrong because we do that all the time, John. But no, seriously, tune in on Monday. We'll be back here. And then Sunday, of course, check out the Full Press NFL Sunday show, which will be getting going Sunday morning. So thank you, everyone. And we'll talk to you then.